Recording. Yeah, and I have all the recordings of classes. So if you want any, if you want to watch it for any reference after, you know, I can send them your way too.
Awesome, I would love that.
So. Okay. We're all set. Okay, so we're going to kind of continue building on where we left off last week with working in these ideas of centering and change. And I'll touch a little bit on kind of the sacred geometry, as it were. So we talked a little bit about that with our spiraling. We'll do some more of that practice today, some spiraling practice. And we'll look a little bit more specifically at these three shapes that kind of can make up a very stable, mobile, dynamic embodiment of movement in the practice, and do some practices with that. But I want to start before we do any talking and any standing, I think that let's just do this extension together again. So we did this last week. Just extend the palms out to the screen so we can connect through this virtual space really nicely. You can just say something like, thanks for being here. Grateful to be here with you, to practice with you. Just send some of that energy out there. And then we'll do a little experiment. So bring your hands together and rub your palms together. This is a way of charging up energy in the hands. Of course, you feel the heat from the friction. And there's the meridian lines in the hands too. We're charging up energy in lots of different ways. So get it going till you feel it nice and warm, almost hot between the hands. And then extend again. And notice what you feel in your hands. Really focus on sensation in the hands, or maybe other parts of the body too. So now we're getting even more energy flowing. Okay, release that. And we're going to do some of this or we practice in a seated position before we stand. So this 1 point, relax completely, weight underside, and extend ki. So we'll start with the 1 point. If you want to bring, you can't really see my lower abdomen, but you can bring your hands to that lower dantian center. So that's the place kind of, thumbs could be on the belly button, hands just below the lower abdomen, kind of the top ridge of the pelvis as well. And just bring the hands there. We're going to take some deep breaths and free up your whole upper body for this breathing. So breathing in and out. Breath in kind of rises up from that place, and the breath out kind of sinking back down. So we connect to the 1 point here. We're relaxing with the breath, just allowing the breath to help us relax. So we're not pushing or forcing relaxation, which of course never works, but just allowing the breath to do it. As you continue this nice cleansing, relaxing breathing, begin to notice, especially on the exhalation when you drop in, the weight of your body against your sit bones, the contact against the chair or the cushion. So we start to feel this next principle, this weight underside, just at least along the pelvis or the upper leg muscles. Especially on that exhalation when the body drops and sinks a little bit. Notice the feeling of the weight and the contact against the chair. And then if you'd like, you can close your eyes for a few moments. Continue this breathing. See if we can visualize our whole body space. So the back of your body, front of your body, your legs and arms, your head, your hands and feet. Still breathing. Still letting your weight relax into the chair. Picture that you have kind of in the shape of your body or in a ball around the body, this orb of energy. We're going to work on this extending ki just from a seated position. So picture this orb of energy, an aura, or the shape of your body, the space just around it. And each time you breathe in, imagine it expanding out. When you breathe out, it compresses back in, sinks in. Breathe in, you expand. Breathe out, compress back in. Kind of like inflating. We inflate our shape and our space. So we breathe in and we breathe out, we release that. You might start to feel like the whole body is breathing together. And we're extending our ki, our energy outward. Then you can open your eyes and just let your vision expand here too. With this last couple moments of breathing, just feel that your vision is expanding too. See as much of the room as you can from this position. Whatever you can see, if you're seeing out of a window, seeing the walls, the objects in the room. This is continuing to extend ki. So what we see and are aware with from our eyes and our vision helps us with that extension. Okay. So we're going to move into some standing practice next. So you can go ahead and stand up, make some space. The first practice we're going to do the centering in 4 dimensions. So we're just going to continue getting a really nice awareness of our whole body space before we start some movement, some extension practice, and things like that. So just standing in a relaxed position, let your arms hang, feel your feet against the ground. We're first going to center in the length of our body. So we can start with the feet. I always tend to start with the feet, just move up from the ground. So feeling the bottoms of the feet. Notice the length of your legs. along the back or the front of the legs. Notice the hips, the base of the pelvis. Again, whatever of this we can be aware of. The length of your spine, all the way from the tailbone, up through the neck, up the head. Feeling the length of your body. Feel the length of the arms hanging at your sides, kind of relaxing the arms at the shoulders, allowing the weight to draw downward. So we nicely inhabit the length of the body. And we're going to center in our width. So we'll start with width by just shifting weight from one side to the other. Shift weight side to side, from one foot to the other foot. And just begin to notice that space between the feet. The space between the feet, knees, between the hips. You notice the space across the rib cage. Maybe feel the breath in the side body. You can feel the space between the arms and the torso. You can expand and compress that space by just moving your arms out. Maybe there's a little bit of space left. So you can be really expanded or really compressed or kind of just relaxed with some space here. Feel the space across the chest, shoulder blades, even across the jawline, from ear to ear, cheek to cheek. And again, that sense of vision. In Japanese, there's this term for wide vision. My eye is kind of seeing everything, relaxed vision. I think in some sports programs, they call it soft focus, right? Like a baseball player having a really soft focus so they can see everything very quickly. See if you can find a little bit of that just relaxing focus and seeing everything in the field of vision. And we'll center along our depth. So we'll start with that too, kind of rocking from the toes back to the heels, just shifting weight. Shifting back and forth and noticing what you feel in the back or the front of the body as you shift the weight. You can start to move our awareness along the back of the legs, back of the knees, back of the hips. Feel the spine and the ribs in the back, shoulder blades, back of your neck, back of your head. We can move along the front of the body, so noticing your face, jaw, throat, chest, ribs in the front of the body, abdomen, hips, down the leg, knees, ankles, toes. Centering with that depth as well, and feeling that space between the back and front. Just having some awareness of all that inside of the body space. You can put both your hands on the center again, the one point here. We'll just center in this centermost point. Make connection to the center. Just relax with a few deep breaths, feeding some energy in through the hands, connected to the center, feeling the whole body space. Release the hands. We're going to do some extension practice next. So we'll continue practicing this principle of extending ki. Nice weight underside, So we'll go into a stance here. You can have your right foot forward and left foot back. Again, finding the width that works for you. Could be really wide or more narrow. Somewhere in the middle, again, you get that nice balance of mobility and stability together. And we're going to do this extension practice with the right hand first. So extend the right hand. With the left hand, we're going to grab the wrist and just let it collapse. So again, not anticipating to collapse with the right arm, but allowing, once you start pulling with the left, just allowing it to collapse in. So we're not resisting, we're not pushing, we're not really holding the space either. And we're going to do this nice extension here with using the upper body muscles. So when you grab with the left hand, this time have some resistance. Use the shoulder, the arm muscles, chest, really push with the upper body against the pull of the left hand. You're kind of like pushing against a wall, you're pushing against yourself, right? So, okay, release that. And then we'll find this extension. So again, the feeling is kind of moving from the back heel, finding that whole body length, right? So speaking again of extending ki, we want to use the whole space of the body and even kind of beyond the body, almost like we're drawing that extension up from the ground through that back heel. It can come through both feet, but the idea of creating the most distance we can in the body is kind of from one side to the other along that diagonal. So think about extending from the back heel, finding a path, picturing, kind of visualizing a path through your body, through that back leg, across the back, out the front arm. And let the elbow be a little soft here. So we're not using as much of the upper body strength. When we come to grab, just think about extending, even like you're reaching out through your fingertips, through the palm of your hand, fingertips, from the back heel almost pushing up from the ground. And we're finding full body extension, using less muscle in the upper body, balancing the muscles we're using through the whole body. Hold this for a few seconds. Remember to breathe. And you can release. Good. Okay, we'll do the left side now. So with the left foot forward, right foot back. Extending from the left arm, first this collapsing. So find that extension, and then when you grab with the right hand, just let it collapse in. Grab and pull in. Grab and pull in. Again, trying not to anticipate with my extended arm, but letting the contact happen and then pulling, feeling that it just totally releases to that pull. Okay, and then we'll do this extension with the strength, the upper body strength, pushing here. So grab with the opposite hand and start to grab in and start to resist and push. Like that feeling of pushing against a wall and really giving it all the strength in your arm you can. It's like both arms are working really hard. Neither is moving anywhere. Okay. Release that. And then we'll find that extension. So again, from the back heel or from both feet, but that feeling of reaching up from the ground, reaching through the heel, finding that path through the body. So extend with the arm and take a couple moments to just feel that path through your body. Feel that you can relax the elbow and the shoulder a little bit here. It's like you're lifting from underneath, that weight underside principle. Energy and extension from the feet. Everything is supporting this extension up here in the arm. when you're ready, you can grab with the opposite hand to the wrist. And as you start to pull in, extend through the whole body, out through the fingertips, out through the palm. And just notice in comparison how little you have to use your shoulder or arm muscles. Obviously, all the muscles will be working a little bit, but it's kind of distributing that strength through the whole body by way of that energy extension. And you can release. So continue cultivating these principles. There's a saying in Qigong, Chinese medicine practice, kind of that we want the strength of the body to be low in the lower body. The upper body is light, free. Kind of the lower the strength is, the more rooted and powerful we can be. So we're gonna talk a little bit next. We can sit down again. We're gonna talk a little bit more about these principles here. You can see. Okay. Good. So I talked a little bit about these last week, just kind of an overview. We're going to go into a little more detail. We're going to do kind of 4 different practices to build this formation together, which I'll talk about in a second. But first we'll talk about these 3 shapes. So sometimes this is called sacred geometry. You know, you can take or leave that name for it, but the idea is that it's very formative of natural energy in the earth. And O-sensei, the founder of Aikido, said, study nature if you want the most complete Budo, Budo being kind of the arts of war, martial arts. So for the most complete and strong and powerful Budo, just study nature, right? Because like fire is powerful, water is powerful. These are unstoppable forces, more powerful than the human body. And then earth as well, of course. So his philosophy was, and the whole art of Aikido is really founded on this kind of principle of the energy that's already in nature. How do we embody that and use it in a martial arts setting? So these 3 shapes come into play in that sense. We talked a little bit about it last week in terms of the spiral, that the spiral movements, which we'll do some of, has these properties of kind of a structure and a solidness. It has this blending and malleability and flow, and it has this direction, whether it's up or down or to either side. In terms of the Chinese philosophical system, which exists in some Japanese practice too, the circle is associated with yin, or the water element, spirit, and that blending. The square is earth, which is the balance between yin and yang, kind of that equal balance, the material, physical world, and that rootedness or solidness. The triangle is yang, is fire, direct, entering, and as well the mind. So the mind is considered the most yang, most direct energy, whereas the spirit is the most yin. And these 3 shapes kind of put together, we can find these qualities, particularly these qualities in terms of the movement, blending, solid, rooted, direct, and entering. We find those in our spiral pattern, and we'll find them in all the movements we're going to do today and next week as well, different ways. So we'll talk a little bit now about this is more along the lines of the sacred geometry form. And again, it exists in Chinese and Japanese study. This is something that exists from like ancient Greek study as well, back from Pythagoras and things like that. The circle within the square, within the triangle, and the greater circle. And we're going to try to do 4 exercises that embody each of these 4 shapes in our practice. So the inner circle is the inner flow. Then we have solid roots, the square. 3 is directness, the triangle, and then outer flow around the whole thing. So we want to have all of those qualities, the inner flow, which we'll do with some kind of spiraling movements. We'll do solid roots, we'll do some rooting practice in a horse stance. Directness, we'll do some entering practice, some direct movement. And the outer flow, we'll do this entering the attack spiral that we did a little bit last week, that movement, and we'll kind of build on that too. So we can kind of take this concept and just plant the seed in our minds and our bodies as we're doing these next exercises, and see how we can feel out these 4 qualities and let them kind of build on each other too. So that we're not kind of losing, for instance, losing that inner flow when we get to thinking about being rooted or being really direct, and also not losing the directness or the roots when we get to flowing again. So finding that balance between all of them, which can take lots of practice, but we'll kind of put our feet in the water of that today a little bit. So, so we'll stand up again, and we'll start with our spiraling practice. So we're going to start with the whole body spiraling today, and we're going to kind of move through. We did last week, spiraling the whole body and kind of feeling out different origins of the spiral, so we can feel it kind of moving down, moving up. So we'll do that a little bit today too. We'll start again, just because it's the place where I most prefer to start, from the feet up. So to start off with, finding that singular circle around the bottoms of the feet. So kind of spiraling, circling from the feet up. So you can feel kind of the heels, the inside of one foot and the outside of the other, the toes, inside and outside, heels, that nice singular circle. And if you like, you can let your heels and toes come up a little bit, like mine are doing, or they can all stay, eventually they'll just all stay down. But if you want to feel them kind of coming up and rocking the feet a lot, it's okay too. You should feel, again, empowered to find this research in your own body to whatever degree of kind of subtleness, whatever degree of external movement. And we'll start to let the spiral come up the body. So you're already feeling it, probably feeling it moving through the knees, the hips, up into the torso to some degree. What we want to do is try to keep the mind focused on the feet, but let the rest of the body open up into the movement, so that the spiral naturally takes a direction and course and travels through the body. So continue at any point you find yourself kind of thinking about another part of the body or thinking about something out there. Just try to return focus gently to the feet. Spiral from the feet. And start to just releasing the chest and shoulders and arms if you can. Allow and invite the spiral up. So it's making space in our body. This is really, although we're doing an external movement, this is really that first stage. Just finding that inner flow. The spiral is moving inside the body, and we're moving on the outside too. Let it move through us. Invite the shoulders, neck, and arms to release. Whatever degree feels okay for your body. Just finding some release there. Of course, you'll find probably with the space that the spiral is traveling, that movement at the top of the head or the shoulders is maybe on a different rhythm, scale, or pattern than movement of the feet. And that might be difficult sometimes to reconcile that it's not as uniform, but just try to, again, keep the attention with the origin place, the feet, and let that movement be whatever it needs to be up here. Keeping that spiral going, we're just going to change our point of focus. So the origin, which can be anywhere we plant our focus and our attention, we're going to change it to the hips and pelvis now. So this is our place of origin here, where we focus our attention. And as you refocus your attention here, things might change, right? The spiral is energy, and in theory, it's going out in 2 directions now, from the center, down through the legs, up through the head. So again, just invite your body to move however it needs to in response to this traveling of the spiral. You find your pace might change, your rhythm, the extent, width, shape of the movement. You can notice any of those qualities. Just keep on spiraling, keep redirecting attention to the hips and pelvis. Okay, good. And we're going to move our attention now up to the head. So you can think about it coming from the top of the head, or the chin, or the neck, or even the shoulders, whatever feels easiest for you to access in terms of noticing in your body. We're going to let that spiral start from the top now. So it keeps moving in the whole body. We're just changing its origin with our focus, our attention. And it's going to start to change how the rest of the body responds. So again, I think I said last week, this is always the hardest place for me to really free up, to be the starting point to travel through the rest of the body, because the neck and shoulders is the place where I carry most of the tension in my body. But it's also why this one is so fruitful, because it can really open up space there where we most need it. Connect the head to the rest of the body, right? That mind-body dualism, right? Our head is often disconnected from our body. So it's good to connect it in a nice spiral here. And just let the spiral kind of sink its way down the body now. So start to relax and just kind of drop in. Let your knees open a little bit and let your weight sink down. Let the spiral sink through the feet. Good. So that's that nice first feeling, that inner flow. Just in this moment of stillness, see what you feel inside. If you can notice some of that swirling or spiraling still. Almost like that feeling when you get off a boat, you're still swaying. We still have some of that residual spiral we can feel, at least for a moment. And we're going to go right from that practice into some rooting. Find those solid roots, right? That foundation, that square. So we're going to go into what's called the Shikodachi stance. It's a variation on horse stance. So it's a wide stance, wider than your shoulders. It doesn't have to be super wide, but at least beyond the shoulders. Let the toes kind of cant outward a little bit like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just bend the knees and sink the pelvis a little bit. So it can be to any degree. This is enough. You can go deeper. Whatever feel like you can support with the strength in your legs. So this is Shikodachi stance. We're going to hold this for a minute. We're going to do a practice called holding the boulder. This is a practice we do in Qigong that develops what I was talking about earlier, that feeling of strength in the lower body, relaxation up top. It's also kind of like what we did the first couple sessions with this weight underside. So it's going to be like what it describes, holding the boulder. Your arms are going to come up here like this, as if you're holding a boulder. So this round rock, this boulder, in front of your chest. This is a great practice for finding that heaviness and solid roots. And remembering that the upper body can relax more deeply with each breath. Like we were doing when we were seated, right? Finding that relaxation. Breathing in, coming up, breathing out, sinking down. Check in with your shoulders. You need to kind of draw them up and release them again. See if we can relax the shoulders more deeply. really building that strong lower body, relaxed upper body. Finding that embodiment of the square, the solidness, the foundation, the structure. Release that boulder, release the arms. Stay in this spot. We're going to do one more moment of practice here in this before we pop back up again. We're going to combine this with a little bit of extension practice. So take your right hand and extend forward. I'm not going to do any grabbing, just extending through the arm. I'm feeling anything you notice here. What does this feel like right now? Can you allow kind of the lower body structure to really support this extension? And then extend with the left arm, the opposite arm. And then we're going to do this kind of in a flow here. So extend one arm, let the other hand just draw back beside the hip. This is almost like a kata practice, like a form practice here. The palm punch, I think, is what Bruce Lee used to call this sort of thing. We're not really doing it with this intention of punching and bringing a lot of power, but we're just feeling how we can extend from this really solid base. And that the arms can stay relatively relaxed, but extend from the base. Okay, and then let both hands extend out. Good, and release the hands. You can straighten back up. So we start to build, we're almost starting to move a little bit from that solid roots toward that directness, right? That was kind of moving towards some ideas of almost like attacks, direct entrances with the upper body. And noticing how we can use this solidness even when we're in movement and flow too. So we'll go right into that directness next, that triangle. We'll get into a stance with the right foot forward. What we're going to do is, this movement is called Aikido Undo. I don't know if we did this last week or I just talked about it or making any of that up, but we'll do this Aikido Undo. So this is actually a movement for receiving a theoretical strike, right? And the feeling is that we kind of row through the hips. As we row forward and bring weight onto the front foot, the hands rise up into kind of this position. So one hand slightly above the other. If my right foot is forward, my right hand is a little bit above. My left hand is a little bit under. The feeling is that I could kind of receive and move with a strike. And yeah, we did do this last week because we did it with a spiraling entrance too. Yeah. So this is Aikido Undo. First technique practice here. So this is starting to move with that directness. We're keeping it really on the line. Let your hands move right up your center line. In line with where your feet are. In line with your one point in your head, your chest. We still have a little bit of that feeling of weight underside and full body extension, right? Don't forget that extension through the back heel. That supports your arms. Reaching up. This is starting to get into a little bit of this reaching and entering into the attack. So the principles in Aikido is that we want to enter into the space of the attack, blend, create movement, create spiral. So we're always moving forward into it, moving into the eye of the storm. This is a good way to continue building on that, right? We can work on our extension. We can continue having solid roots through the legs, even though we're rowing. Okay, and we'll do this with the left foot forward. So again, if the left foot's forward, the only difference is my left hand will be a little higher than the right. The reason really for that is just so I have some options, right? So my hands aren't level. So wherever I might meet the attack, one hand is an option of moving to another place, depending on where my meeting might be. So feeling that, rowing through the lower body. Again, remembering your full body extension from the back heel all the way through the arms, rooted through your feet and the lower body. This feeling of entering into the space here. So we're not doing this with any stepping or other movement yet, but just staying really direct. So we can embody this directness of just moving straight into the space in front of us. Okay, can release that. We're going to spend a moment doing the kind of counterpart to that movement. So what in at least a very formal practice, what that movement is receiving is a chop, like a karate chop to the head. So we're going to practice that part too. This will continue to embody this sense of directness, right? So the same feeling with the right foot forward, we're starting. We're going to do this chop. So when we're doing a chop in the Japanese practice, it's called shomanuchi, chop to the forehead. You can feel like it comes right up your center line and like you're striking from your forehead to someone else's. And the same feeling here, rowing. We want to kind of bring the weight forward before the chop is released so that we continue to, again, that principle of the levels, right? We have inner flow, we're remembering our extension and our flow and our energy. And we make sure we have our solid root and our base before the chop is released. So whether we're, giving the attack or we're receiving the attack, we're always keeping this sacred geometry principle here. Inner flow, solid roots, and then the directness of the attack coming right up the center, releasing to the other center. We could say the same if we were doing different kinds of strikes too, where we try to move the strike from as close to our center as possible and keep in that power, keep in that spiraling energy, not move way out here out of our center. Okay, let's do it with the left foot forward. So again, in stance with the left foot forward, finding that strike in keeping with the rowing, and remember to kind of row your weight forward just a little bit before the strike is released. So we really keep that principle of having the solid roots before we release this direct strike. And of course, like we did last week, anytime we're rowing, it's both direct and there's the spiraling, right? The hips kind of move a little bit in a spiral movement all the time. So we have that direct extension and that circular spiraling energy moving through us. All right, great. So then we'll get to this fourth step. It's going to be the practice we did last week, and then we'll kind of build on it in the next moment with a little extra movement practice. But we'll do this kind of outer flow, all these principles together. We were doing this last week, starting in a stance, kind of finding the spiral and stepping in with this Ikkyo Undo position, like this, and then stepping back, So the same feeling here, we're just gonna kind of build these other principles into it a little more. So if you want to, in stance, let's start with the right foot forward. Just feel a little bit of that spiral in stance first. So we can build everything together. We have this little inner flow, feeling the spiral. We have our solid roots. And we're gonna have that directness so that we step forward, bring it up, and step back. Step forward, bring it up, and step back. So we're still spiraling. The movement has that spiral quality to it, right? We're still having that whole circular movement as we come forward and backward. But really working on those other qualities, the solid roots. It's feeling like you're moving directly into that space in front of you, even though the spiral is part of the movement. Good. And again, that whole body extension. You can feel it through your feet, up through the arms, allowing you to move with less effort, have more extension, more of that strength and relaxed power that comes with extension and spiral. All right. Then we'll switch our stance. Left foot forward, and we're going to step in with the right foot this time. So again, let's just start off by revisiting the spiraling here in stance. Just feeling how that movement is always there, at least if only in the hips. Anytime we're entering or switching stance from this position, there's always a little bit of spiral still happening physiologically in the hips. And then we can continue to center on that energy. And we're going to find this movement. So again, finding solid roots through your feet as you step. Feeling the directness of the entrance, even though it's moving in a circular spiral movement. There's directness with how you're extended. We're not bypassing the point of the space in front of us, entering into it, spiraling through it, this entering and blending principle. Even though we're circling, right, the arms always are staying in front of the center because the whole body's working together. Good. Okay. So we're going to try this with the strike too. So we kind of get both ends of this situation, this kind of theoretical situation or meeting point. So the same feeling, right? Spiraling, same feeling of stepping in, but we're going to do that chop from the forehead. So this is embodying a little bit more even the quality of directness in entrance because the arm stays really centered. But remember, you're spiraling through the whole body, right? My hips move, spiral moves through the entrance with my foot. The way my chest is tilting from one side to the other. So all that is that circle, that spiral. And we keep in our solid roots, right? So remember to let that foot that enters be nice and stable just before you release the strike. Good. Feeling that nice extension. Yeah. Okay, and let's try this the other side. So bring the left foot forward. We're going to be entering with the right side, the right hand chopping. So again, feeling that spiral movement, still there, it's still part of the movement. That inner flow, solid roots, our directness in the chop. And all of it comes together to represent that outer flow. Whole body's moving together, energy moving inside, lower body heavy and rooted, direct with the entrance and the strike. Everything together builds that outer flow, that entering and blending. All right, nice. Okay, let's come to sitting again. And I think we will have time for the last practice I wanted to do, which we will continue working on next week too. But I want to talk about it as well. So, here we go. So centering and change. We talked about this a little bit last week. And all of these movements are working with these principles. Just noted out some things that are kind of principles that allow us to center and change, and as well, they're things that we might feel as we become more adapted to this notion of staying centered and change, right? So constant mind-body awareness, that sense of noticing what's happening in the body, also that ma'ai, right, that field of vision too. Responsive and adaptive to new stimulus. All of these principles are great. They apply like on interpersonal, cultural, social, all levels, right? So we can be responsive and adaptive to new stimulus and change and adapt without losing some of our own integrity too, right? And holding integrity while making space for others. And that's really in these principles of like those entrances we were just simulating. We're entering into the space of the attack to make space for the attacker to then move past, right? So rather than blocking, meeting strength or force with force, we make space for the other. The beginner's mind, of course, great principle there, right? As we change and face something new, we can meet it with that sense of new beginning. And then, of course, the grounding and rooting, staying grounded is really important for centering and change. So we're going to do a practice called the step turn slide. And this practice is a great one for embodying this centering and change. And we're going to add some more qualities to this movement, bringing everything together kind of next week in terms of its kind of martial capabilities as an entrance. But we'll do it right now just with this kind of philosophy in mind. So we'll think about the idea of centering and change and these different qualities as we do this movement, this simple step turn slide. So we'll go ahead and do that as we finish out today. So the step turn slide, I'll start at an angle so you can see me better. If I start in my right foot forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to step through with my left, get a pivot on the point, and I drop my right foot back. So now I have my left foot forward, and then I can repeat the same movement from the other side. So left foot forward, I step, I pivot on the point, and then slide the foot back. Yeah, so each time we finish the movement, we should end up with the opposite foot forward, right? I start with my right, I end up with my left. Nice. And then I do the same, start with my left, end up with my right. Good. So this is the step turn slide. It's also called Arimi Tenkan in Japanese. It means entering and turning. We did last week the Tenkan, just the turning on the point. This is the entering and turning. So the two basic footwork patterns. This one is really great principle for centering and change, because each time we move through, we're not only facing a different space, but we have a different foot forward. So we've changed our body and our position and the stimulus or environment we're seeing. So we can think about these principles a little bit as we do this movement, step, turn, slide. Think about having awareness of the space, right? My eyes are up, I can see the room, but I'm trusting that I can feel with my somatic awareness, feeling where my feet are, right? So I don't necessarily have to look at my feet as I start to feel more where they're going. Keep my eyes up and seeing the space. As well, feeling in your center, find that one point in your body. If you even want to put your hands there for a moment, you can. Feel how that one point is doing the spiraling. You're getting into the spiraling again. The whole body is, but right in there, start in the center of the spiral. Eye of the storm, like I said earlier. That one point is right in the center, and it's very sturdy and supported and not disturbed too much by the movement. And as well, feeling grounding through your feet. So each time you complete the movement, you can kind of pause, feel your roots, move again. Pause and feel in your roots. So we can check that we're really balanced as we move. We complete one of the movements and we check I'm balanced, I'm rooted, and I can go again. So it can be a lot to think about in a relatively straightforward footwork pattern. As we continue to build these different things, become more and more and more accustomed to that centering and change. We start to embody it, start to apply that embodiment to other facets of our life. This movement can be really calming. It's actually when my son was an infant, this is how I put him to sleep. I would hold him, my arms, do this. It kept me more calm. Maybe it was mostly about just keeping me calm. And it was easier for him to go to sleep. Right. And so we'll just finish out there for today. I want to look more at that movement, and we'll do some of the same kind of patterns of entering different meeting places, kind of representing both ends of a theoretical encounter, and work on bringing those principles together in that movement. So we can kind of build on the footwork, that geometry and spiraling, and bring it all together. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. That was
Yeah.
great. So I really liked the last activity, turn slide. I noticed at first I was looking down, but like as you were speaking, I was like, just trust yourself. But then scoping out everything that I could see when I wasn't looking down. So
Yeah, and it's like, is trust in yourself. Yeah.
yeah, that, and then there was the other reminder when we did the other activity, and of course it's escaping me exactly how you framed it, but when we were spiraling, my neck, my head is the hardest. I feel like my whole body's moving and my neck is just rock solid.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
It is really hard to release there, and like I struggle with that, and like that's why I try to really focus on it, and it's like I get creaks and cracks, but you know, afterwards it feels a little better though, yeah.
Exactly. And this week I felt I moved my neck a lot more than I did last week. So.
Oh, awesome. Good. Yeah.
Thank you
There's
so
like
much.
levels to that, where your muscles maybe open up a little bit, and also like as you think about the energy flow, your body responds to that thought, you know, that like I'm thinking about energy and your body's like, okay, I'm starting to feel it maybe, you know. Cool. Yeah, well, thanks so much, Rock. Yeah, great to practice with you.
Yeah, great to practice with you. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Absolutely. Have a good time. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Yeah,
Take care.
bye.
Bye-bye.